Coming up in today's video, we're going to continue on our MVC tour of the basic blank project. We're going to get into doing some more pages. It's going to be cool. I promise you're going to really enjoy it. Okay, my name is Frank Thomas. Thank you for joining me on Frank's Tech Channel. Today we're going to be talking more about the MVC model and building some more basic pages using a lot of the tools built right in Visual Studio. And as you can see, yes, I'm not doing anything exotic. I'm not doing any JavaScript goofiness. I'm not putting any new razor in. I'm using the basic. When everything's done in the basic, I'll go through and show you some cool modifications, okay? And we'll actually maybe even throw in a Ajax call to do a post for us and complete the post that way instead. So there's lots of ways to look at this. But right now, we'll take a look at the apps. This is kind of where we left off. We have it still running from the last lesson. And basically, we have a few entries in here, as you can see. And we want to go now to create some more pages. We've added a creation. We can create a new entry. Okay. Now let's say we want to do edit. Okay. So let's create the edit page. So let me just bring up my show notes so I don't make a mistake here. Okay. So let's close a few pages here just to avoid confusion. We don't need the customer, that one, or that one, or that one. We just need the controller. So right now, we've created three actions for the controller page under customers. The basic index page, the create page, the post to initially display the data, or not the post, the get to display the data, and the post to actually post it to the server. It'll send back errors if there's any errors. If not, it saves the change and takes us right back to the listing page, which is nice, clean, neat. It just makes sense. So going forward here, we want to create our, I'll just crack that open. We want to create our create page. So I'm going to grab the text here to make sure we got the action name correct. And I'm going to say here, get customers, and we're going to do a create. So we're going to public action result. Oh, I spelled the wrong number. It's not coming up. There we go. Okay, so when we actually go to this page, let's just take a look here. When we go to this page, we're we have nothing yet. We have nothing. So we have to create everything. So we got nothing to start with. So what we're going to do is we're going to open it up. So we have nothing to pass in is what I'm saying. So to create, what we need to do is we need to literally, this is actually pretty easy here. I'm just going to the right notes. We have to create a customer because we have to actually build the model, because we have to pass a model variable into the page and pull it back from the page with everything we need going in and coming back out. That's the best way, of course. So what we're going to do is we're going to say customer equals new customer. Okay, so we've created a blank or an empty variable called customer. Now the next thing we're going to do is we're going to say return view, and we're going to pass it customer. And as simple as that. Okay, why are you complaining? Oh, I did the create. Sorry. I was sitting there thinking I did it already. We're doing the edit. My apologies, guys and girls. We're doing the edit. You must have been screaming on the other side of the screen. Dude, you're doing the wrong thing. I was wondering why my show notes were in the wrong place. Okay, so we're going to do an edit. So my apologies. Okay, but we're going to do a few small changes. We've created the customer here. And I'm just making sure I've got something. And I'm going to open up the database because I got to go retrieve the information. I'm going to grab this information here, stick it in here, put my squigglies in. Now I got to go collect that customer. So I'm going to say, oh yes, edit. In the edit, we're actually passing a value, not the create. The edit. See here, we're passing an ID of edit, or of the value of the thing. So we're going to go int ID. Now, there is nice things you can do to protect yourself against somebody not putting an ID in properly, things like that. But again, it's a little more exotic. I'm not going to touch that at all. And I notice a lot of people forget that. You can, because I'll actually show you, if I don't put any value here with the edit statement, because what will happen is it'll be edit slash, let's say 2 for the entry number 2. If I just leave it blank, it'll actually throw an error, and there's ways to get around that. Okay, so customer, and I'm going to say is equal to context dot customers dot first or default. Now, what's the difference between first and first or default? From what I gather, if I put in first, it will work. But if there's no entry, it'll throw an error. It'll throw an exception, which is what we don't want. Because now you got to go in and handle the exception, things like that. Now, if I use first or default, what happens is it won't throw an error. It just returns a null entry. Okay, so I'm going to say C, and I'm looking to point to the ID, and it has to be equal to ID. Okay. And now I come outside of the squigglies here, and I return view customer. Okay, because we have to pass it to the edit page, of course. Now we have to create the page. I'm going to say add view, much like we did in the last video. I'm going to do a create page this time, and I'm going to point it to the customer model. I'm going to say okay, or add it in here. It's basically added in. Now you have to realize that what we're going to be doing though is we're going to be passing data back from this page, because again, as you can see, we're filling in a form. Okay, so we need to create a post action. So I'm just going to jump to the end here. Okay, and I have to do an HTTP post public action result edit. In this case, I'm actually getting passed back the customer object from the page. Okay, and this is why this is different here. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to go in here, and the first thing I'm going to do, like we did when we did the create, is make sure, actually I'm going to cut and paste. Cut and paste is your friend. And I cut and paste that in. So what happens is if I have taken it, let's say the first name on the edit, it's going to come back and say, dude, you can't do that. I'm sorry. Okay. Same as when you do the create. Same. Okay. So now, I'm going to show you something here right off the kick. So I'm going to grab all this information here. I'm going to dump this in. And I'm going to call this var old. Old customer info. Okay. And of course, I don't have an ID. I have a customer, so I'm going to say customer dot ID. Okay. There we go. So, life is good. Now I have the old customer information. I can't just save the information as it is. I have to actually open that record up, modify that record, and resave it. Okay. So it is a lot of thinking about the flow of data in a database. You just don't create a new record over the old. You actually have to open that record, modify the data, and send it back. Now, this is something that threw me for a fruit loop for a long time here. I would say something like old customer info is equal to customer. Makes sense, you know? And I'm going to just turn around and say context, because I have to do my save changes, okay? And when I'm all said and done, I'm going to go back to the redirect to action index. Now you notice I'm not putting anything in there telling the user that they've actually saved or anything. Again, that's a little more exotic. I'll show you that later. Okay, so one would think that this should work because I've changed the information. I've basically overwritten the object from one object to the other, but not so fast. Okay, because the entity doesn't like this. You'll see here why in a second. So I'm going to put a pause here to break this so we can see it. So I'm going to go in here and I'm going to run this in debug mode. I'm going to click Edit, brings us to our page. Now let's say I change this to 54321. Create. Okay, now we're in debug mode here. Now it's going to bring us here. Now let's take a look at our value here. We look at customer. It's an object with the postal code 54321. Old data 54321. Now let's continue the actual process here. One, two, three, four, five. So it didn't save the data. From what I gather, and this is my guess, and I could be very wrong, is we're actually instead of this object looking at it's a previous entry, it's actually now looking at another object, and entity just can't see that. So what we have to do is we have to go through the hassle of actually writing in the entries. And if anybody has a way, here's today's question, a way to do this better, put it in the question, or put it in the questions and show us all, and be sure to do a video on it. So I'm going to replace this statement with these statements here. Okay? The whole idea being is I'm going through here is I'm replacing each value one after another. As far as I know, this is the easiest way. Okay, so now the changes have been made. Let's go back to our database and test this. Okay, so here we go. I'm going to edit this entry. I'm going to say 54321 create. 54321. So our edit screen is working perfectly. We can double check to make sure that we can't do anything we shouldn't be able to. Create, it came up saying that. I can go back to list, nothing's changed, okay? Perfect. Okay, guys, so I'm going to leave it here. In the next video, I'm going to be jumping into the last two pages, the details and the delete, and you now will have seen all the different pieces you need to create these things. And you can see that Visual Studio really goes out of its way to do a lot of stuff for us. Be sure to subscribe, or if you want to become a super subscriber, click on the bell for notifications, and know the next very minute that I put out the next video. Guys, thanks a lot. We'll talk to you next time.